Hey folks, Jordan with the Young Turks, TYT Politics. To my left, flip it around.
What's happening?
Tommy Tahifi Bayless, fellow jailbird. Sorry for the poor production quality. As is life, we are on the road. We are very close to East Chicago, Indiana. We are honoring our commitment. We were planning on going to East Chicago to follow up on the lead crisis in that city, and then we're on our way back to Flint. I think we're going to be back to St. Louis right after that, so we're staying on that story. But wanted to update you on the ongoing protests in St. Louis, as well as our arrest, and tell you what the powerful, aka the mayor of St. Louis, Lyda Krewson is her name, Lyda Krewson, is saying in response. Again, in the car, we're doing 50 things possible while trying to be safe. Done a few interviews today with media, so it's great to see media starting to take an interest in their fellow journalists being arrested for journalism. I spoke with Politico.com a little bit ago. I spoke with Mike.com. Still waiting for CNN's Brian Stelter, who covers media, to give me a ring. So looking forward to that if he decides to do that. And any other big name media outlets. Tugging on the cord, brother. Any other big name outlets? No, I'm not driving. Ty is driving. Any other big name outlets that want to discuss journalists getting arrested for journalism? As I've said, doesn't matter if it's corporate media, independent media, progressive media, conservative media, none of that really matters. We got to protect journalists.
You got to protect the First Amendment.
Yeah, and the First Amendment, because if we're not there, not that we're so special, but if you don't have cameras and you don't have legal observers, you have an authoritarian dictatorship. And that's what they want. They don't want you to be able to see what they're doing. That is the police department. So this morning I reached out to the St. Louis Police Department, reached out to the mayor. So far I have not heard back from the St. Louis Police Department, not surprised. But I have heard back from the mayor. Again, her name is Lyda Krewson. She gave me a statement, quote, and again, sorry for the bumps. We're driving, trying to make a meeting in East Chicago, Indiana. Quote, every journalist has a constitutionally protected right to cover these demonstrations. Any allegation that those rights were not recognized or protected is troubling, which is why I have asked the U.S. Attorney's Office to conduct an independent investigation into these claims. I should point out that this is not something new that she's telling us. She said she was asking the U.S. Attorney's Office to investigate last week. So it's not new, but she is reiterating that she is asking for a U.S. Attorney's Office investigation. I understand that the country has a legacy of policies that disproportionately impact people along racial and economic lines. This legacy is also St. Louis's reality. I do understand that people are also protesting policies and beliefs that stem from institutional racism, which my administration is directly taking on. Again, I'm not driving. Thank you. Keep your eye on the road. I'm not driving. I'm in the passenger seat. And I do have my seatbelt on, right there. So thank you very much for your concern. We are working with community partners to change how we handle use of force investigations, and we are working to strengthen the Civilian Oversight Board, which investigates claim of police misconduct. Ty is driving, and we'll see what Ty thinks in a minute. First of all, not exactly smart for me to say this because the mayor's office has expressed willingness to do an interview, but I'm not an access journalist, and I'm going to keep it real. So I'm going to say the truth, and if the mayor's office is watching and don't like it and don't want to give me an interview, so be it. But if the police department works under the mayor. The police department works under any mayor in the United States. The mayor, man or woman, sets how the police department operates. So if the mayor issued a call for a U.S. Attorney's Office investigation into police, that's terrific. However, that was a week ago. So if the mayor was troubled that the police department was arresting journalists, which is against the First Amendment, they would not be arresting journalists anymore. You see how that works, Ty?
Uh-huh.
So the bottom line is, the mayor...
That's an easy fix.
Yeah. So the mayor has the power to instruct the police department to let journalists do their jobs. Don't try to intimidate journalists. Don't try to harass journalists. Don't brutalize journalists. The journalists are there to cover the event, and your job is to, if you want to call it crowd control or make sure the protests safely, that's fine. Number two, based on, I think the police need to be careful about arresting journalists because you find out a lot of information in the jail. You talk to people and you find out a lot of information. So when the mayor says she has been doing her best to, kind of bridge that gap, to ease some of the tensions and the racial history between police and protesters, according to dozens of protesters I've spoken, not so much. Not so much. Not doing enough. Not doing enough to, A, make sure the police stop brutalizing young black men and women. And by the way, there are white allies. There are white allies there marching with them, getting brutalized. So it's not just Black Lives Matter out there. But number two, from my viewpoint in the jail, if the mayor has instructed the police and is trying to ease tensions, ease racial divides, she ain't doing a good job, because I personally witnessed police hurling racial slurs at people they arrested, homophobic slurs at people they arrested, laughing at some of the arrestees, and overall kind of having a grand old time arresting all these protesters, and then once in the jail, not giving us water for a very long time, not giving us food for a very long time, and withholding medications from arrestees who were begging for medication for depression, anxiety, and one man next to me was potentially witnessing a diabetic shock. So, again, the mayor could call for an investigation. We hear that in a lot of situations, that's fine. But the mayor is in charge of the police department. So, if the mayor called for this investigation a week ago, and since that time, police are still arresting journalists, still using very, very aggressive tactics against protesters, including creating a kettle, which is a four-way blockade, so that journalists or protesters cannot leave. Even if you say you must leave or you're going to get arrested, which they did not say 2 days ago. Well, either the mayor is not telling the same police department, St. Louis Police Department, to A, leave journalists and legal observers alone, and B, do not brutalize the protesters. Do not taunt the protesters. Do not racial slurs and homophobic slurs to protesters. And by the way, as you've seen from my interviews, I just did an interview with a reverend this morning. This isn't a 2-week thing. This has been going on for decades in St. Louis. And it's going on in places all over. So sorry to Mayor Lyda Kusin, who I probably won't get an interview with now, but so be it. That's a bunch of lip service that you gave me. Your calls for investigation are swell, but the bottom line is you could tell the police chief, the sergeant, no more arresting journalists, and you better go by the book. That could have happened from the beginning of these protests. I am not from St. Louis. I'm not a journalist in St. Louis. I don't know everything, but from what I've learned, this mayor did run on, one of her slogans was neighborhood security and law and order.
AKA beat the shit out of black people.
Right. So Ty, my thoughts, your thoughts.
Yeah, I
Hold on.
Get your shit together, man.
Yep.
Are you good?
Yep.
Oh,
Keep your eyes on the road, motherfucker.
I share your sentiment, man. I think you're absolutely right. I think that, call it how it is. You have control over that. This is not the first time you heard of it. This is not the first time that they've done it. You know what I'm saying? What she ran on, policing, that's exactly what they did. That square that they put us in and didn't allow us to get out of that and then arrested us, that's exactly what she wants. You know what I'm saying? So I think you're absolutely right. If she wanted it to happen, if she wanted to make sure that people, observers, legal observers, and the press not get arrested in St. Louis, she could have easily done it. That's an easy fix. There's no red tape to that. You're the red tape. So I agree with you. She's, I was going to tell you to call the attorney's office to see if she actually has started that investigation already. It's been 2 weeks, so I know it has to be, has already pushed forward. If not, then we can tell, where her heart is. And we, like you said, when we was in jail, we heard a whole lot of stuff. We heard a whole lot of stuff about her too. So
everybody's saying, stop looking at the camera, look at the robe.
But I'm so good looking.
Oh, Jesus.
But yeah, I agree with you, man. And it's all bad. It reminded me, it's funny, when we were talking to the Reverend Daryl yesterday when we were released. He mentioned that, when he first met us, he wanted us to really understand like what they've been going through in St. Louis, and he didn't know it was going to happen the way it happened, but he was kind of grateful that we did get arrested because we were able to see exactly what they go through. And I agree. I couldn't agree with him anymore. Maybe we wouldn't have the same empathy towards it, same understanding. It's a difference hearing a third party than going through it, than actually seeing it, than being in there, actually hearing what's going on and seeing how the guards were treating the people that they were detaining. I mean, the COs were treating people how they were detaining, and get a full glimpse of what they have to go through when they protest and because I'm sure they understand. The protesters understand that there's a good possibility that they may be detained, which they're okay with that. They don't mind sacrificing that. But at the same time, when they go to jail, they're still human. And there's a way that you're supposed to treat inmates. And it's not being treated they're not being treated as humans when they're in custody. You don't put someone in a cell with 36 people when the capacity is 31, and then put them in a cell with no running water for 5 hours before they were able to get water. You don't do that. And if you condone that, if the mayor condones that, shame on her. I'm sure she knows. I'm sure she knows.
I want to also point out, and I don't want to only talk about the journalist angle. It's really not particularly about us. But, if you're a mayor of a city that has protests going for 2.5 weeks, and you've already had 300 arrests, and you're now seeing the corporate media finally starting to pay attention. A few people are reporting on our arrests. I sent her a list of 7 questions. Her staffer said to me, "Oh yeah, she's in meetings and all this, so she didn't have time to get back to you. She just gave you a statement." Yeah, not that I'm so special, but if you are the mayor right now, the most important priority of yours are these protests and these arrests for journalists and protesters. I think you might make a little time to get back specifically question by question, because I didn't only ask her about what are your thoughts on them arresting journalists. I asked her, are you aware and okay with the fact that they are withholding medication from people that very, very sorely need it? She didn't respond to that question. I asked, are you aware that they put 2 trans men, and excuse me if I'm getting the verbiage wrong.
No, I think it's trans men. Okay. You're right.
2 trans men. There was a guard.
Transgender men.
Transgender men. A guard who said, I don't know what they are, and tossed them in a separate cell from the rest of the men and the women. Are you aware that your officers were laughing at people in the jail cell and almost like taunting them? Are you aware that there were racial slurs, homophobic slurs? Are you aware that they withheld medication from one man in front of me for 16 hours, and when the person started getting a little nuts about it because he has severe anxiety, depression, and can't miss one dosage, they put him in solitary confinement.
And one guy, you didn't mention this, but one guy in the cell that I was in, he needed an insulin shot. His blood sugar was low. He was saying he was feeling lightheaded and dizzy. And so, a couple people started bamming on the door for him, and to get the CO's attention, and so that the CO can get the nurse's attention. And so they finally opened the door, and he's telling her that he's feeling lightheaded. He thinks his blood sugar's low, that he has diabetes. She was like, just exactly what she said. I may be paraphrasing a little bit, but I kind of remember. She looked at him and she said, I mean, I guess I can check it, but if your blood is low, I don't have no food to give you. Like it doesn't, yes, you do. You would find food. That's what you do. You find if there's an issue and then you fix it. She said, I don't have no food to give you. If your blood sugar's low, oh well. I thought that was so absurd and insensitive.
And, here's the bottom line. And, as always, gonna keep it as I flip the camera around. And by the way, this is down and dirty style. I don't even have my monopod. I'm holding the phone with my arm, and you're coming along for the bumps with us. So I hope you like the open road, because we're driving to Indiana. But here's the bottom line. I don't even need to investigate it or look into it, because I could bet the very few dollars I have that this is true, and I will confirm it. The police unions have given money to this mayor, just like they've given money to every single politician in St. Louis.
Mind you, there's two police unions.
Yes, a white police union,
which is crazy,
and a black police union
because of the inner racism within the police department.
Right. So, bottom line, you got segregated police unions, but the white one is certainly giving money to this mayor. So is big business and the others. A Democrat mayor. So, when all these hillbots say, stronger together, unite, stop being Bernie bros, this is a Democratic mayor right here. This is not a Republican. So, bottom line, it's fine. You could say, oh, I'm calling for an investigation. Yeah, we've heard that from many politicians. That's a way of saying I'm doing something without actually doing something. Because you have the power right now to make a call to the police chief, the sergeants, all of them. Forget the journalists for a second. And say, cool it with the pepper spray. Cool it with the mace. Cool it with slamming into protesters with your shields, which I saw them do yesterday, not even to a protester, to a legal observer, 2 days ago, to a 60-something-year-old legal observer, rammed them with a shield. So if you, as the mayor, say you are working on easing tensions and easing that racial divide, well, you could talk and your mouth can move, but your actions are not supporting that, Mayor Lyda Krewson. The bottom line is, this mayor has the power right now. And by the way, it's not enough just to say to the police, hey, do not rough up journalists, do not falsely arrest journalists, and do not falsely rough up protesters. Then you have to deal with the systematic issues in this state and this city, which are not going to happen overnight because they've been built over for decades and decades. Centuries, really. But at the end of the day, Mayor Krewson, thank you for responding to TYT Politics. Thank you for responding to me. I don't know if it was you who responded or your staffer wrote a statement for you, but not enough. Your investigation is hollow. You have the opportunity right this minute to change history. You have an opportunity right this minute to not only protect First Amendment rights for journalists, because I don't want to make this about Ty or I. We could rant all day and make this about us.
They've been arresting journalists. When we got there, the journalist that was there was telling us what they have been doing. So they're concerned about it too, because they're on the ground every day. And so if they're silencing them, you got to think about the tactics. Think about those tactics. Arrest the legal observers and the press first, is what they said. First. Why would you think? Because then we can crack heads when they're gone. Because we were in the truck before we left. We were in the truck for at least 25 minutes before we actually left that scene where the protest was, and then they took us to the police station.
But more importantly, yeah, it's not good to arrest journalists, and we've made that point. They have really brutalized. They brutalized a 13-year-old kid.
Yeah.
They brutalized a 13-year-old kid. I might not have the exact date, but a week ago, they roughed up a senior citizen mother who was trying to get the police off her child.
A lady with a wheelchair got pepper sprayed.
A lady with a wheelchair got pepper sprayed. And this wasn't even while we were there. This was previous, over the last 2 weeks. So you have them arresting journalists at will, arresting legal observers at will. Legal observers not supposed to be arrested. Not in Standing Rock, not here, not anywhere. But they have been arresting them in Ferguson and here. Because the legal observers are there to observe the police. Not supposed to arrest journalists. Okay, forget those two miscarriages of justice and clear violations of the First Amendment.
Yep.
But you're brutalizing teenagers, 13-year-olds. You're brutalizing senior citizens. You are entrapping protesters. So if you want to arrest protesters for blocking the highway, okay.
And they're intimidating them with cars. And I told you about this when I was doing the edit, and we'll put it in the edit so you guys can actually see. Damn near look like Charlottesville. The police officer backed his car up amongst protesters and almost hit people who just sprinting to the side so they wouldn't get hit. Crazy. Wow, we're gonna repost it in the video. You'll see it. It's absurd.
So I think, listen, I could have done a response here and just given you her statement and given you some talking points so I could get an interview with her. But what's the point? What is the point of allowing politicians to spew bullshit while they turn their head and a mostly white police department brutalizes unarmed black and white people?
Yeah.
Keyword, poor black and white people. It's not just about black or white. These are poor people.
It's a class.
And it is predominantly a class thing. I interviewed Reverend Darrell Gray, a civic leader here, and he said this is first and foremost about poverty. And remember, and he said it, I don't want to steal his thunder, when Martin Luther King had a civil rights march, they didn't kill him. It was when he had a march for poverty. Economics, they killed him. So my response to the mayor is, A, thank you for responding, even though you're just telling us what you said a week ago. But bottom line, you said a week ago you were calling for an investigation. Well, the week since then, have you talked to your police commander?
They're still doing it.
Have you talked to your police commissioner to tell them your job is to protect the people? Your job is to protect yes, the citizens who aren't protesting, but ensure that protests can happen safely. Now, we get it. The mayor probably don't like what the protesters are doing. They're blocking traffic. They're blocking businesses. They are disrupting. But you know what? That's what America is. If you think these protesters are going to get anything by saying, excuse me, Mr. Police, could you please stop killing us? Can I just send that to you via fax? I mean, give me a break. So
it's stressing my mind out, man.
Yeah, the bottom line is the mayor. And by the way, this isn't only on the mayor. This is on Senator Claire McCaskill, the Democrat senator of Missouri, ain't doing a damn thing about this. Too busy fear-mongering on Russia. There's also a congressman, Stacey, God damn it, I forget her last name. Black congressman, not doing much from what I hear. And again, actions speak louder than words, Mayor Crewson. You could take the action right now to tell police to stop arresting journalists, and a lot of these protesters are going into these protests willingly protesting to get arrested. But that does not give you the St. Louis Police Department or any police around this country the right to mace them in the face, unarmed people, pepper spray them in the face, tear gas. I spoke with one 17-year-old white kid who has been tear gassed so bad the doctor tells him, you probably have permanent lung damage. 17-year-old. And the mayor, be careful about arresting journalists, because I plan on doing a lot of follow-ups about the racial slurs, the homophobic slurs, the putting trans people in separate cages, essentially, withholding medications in jail. You all fucked with the wrong guy. Or guys. So, yeah. And just an update, I don't know what the charges are against Ty or I. We didn't get any paperwork, so we anxiously await. But there is a paper trail, St. Louis PD, and there is a paper trail, Mayor Krewson. So if you're going to charge us and try to create some funny business, well, the public is going to see we were aggressive in our journalism to you. I hope Mayor Krewson will grant me an interview still, just like I was fair with Mayor Weaver of Flint. A lot of viewers thought I was not hard enough on her. I try to be fair, even though I thought I was tough. I'll be fair to you, Mayor Krewson, but you're the mayor. You were elected. You got to answer these questions, and you are responsible for the city of St. Louis. Nobody else. We are close to East Chicago, Indiana. We will be live from there within the next hour or two, following up on the lead crisis there that never got any attention. The lead crisis, by the way, that happened under former Indiana Governor Mike Pence, who, when Greentown, Indiana had a lead problem, Mike Pence went down there, fixed in 6 seconds. More literally 2 months. East Chicago, Indiana, poor, predominantly Latina and black people. Poor Latina and black people. 1 year later, not a lot has changed. So we're going to go follow up on that, then make our way to Flint, and most likely be back in St. Louis right after that. So I got my back brace on. I haven't slept in 48 hours. Ty and I, we ain't gonna lie, we had some booze last night.
Yeah.
We did have some booze.
We needed a couple, 1 or 2 drinks. Shit.
Yeah.
We've been in jail and on that hard ass, cold ass concrete.
That's right.
Jail really allows you to appreciate. I felt elated when I walked out of there. It makes you really appreciate the small things about freedom. The fact that you don't have to ask someone, could you have water?
Yeah.
Or use the restroom.
And I just want to make one small request to the TYT viewers out there. I really appreciate some of you and your thoughts, and you were calling the jails and all that. But in the future, if I get arrested, please don't message my mother directly on Facebook. A fine woman messaged my mother. I don't know how you got my mother's contact.
He appreciates your heart, but
yeah. Don't message my mother, because there's something about mothers, particularly Jewish mothers, that if you just message your son is in jail, they tend not to take that so well. And there was a reason I didn't call my mother, because I love my mother, but I don't want to scare her unnecessarily. I was going to tell her after. So do me a favor, leave my mother out of it. But lots of love to you, Lori Sheridan. Thanks for birthing me and dealing with my shenanigans. Ty loves you too.
And thanks for adopting me.
Yeah.
I wish you would marry me.
You hear that? Ty says, I wish you would marry me. I don't know if Larry's going to like that. Anyway, again, like I said, we're off to East Chicago. The mayor's statement is up on my Twitter. It's up on my Facebook. We are going to continue pressing the St. Louis Police Department, who I imagine thinks that they could just keep their head down, not say anything, and it will all go away. But unfortunately, it's not going to go away, because you're going to mess with the wrong person. And troll Jason Cruz said, "See you later, Special Ed." Why, thank you, sir. Thank you for that inspiring message from Dapple. We'll talk to you later. We'll be live very soon.
Peace. Follow me at Tommy, TOMMIE _ Tyehefe, TYHEFE on Twitter.
Yeah, make sure he feels good. He's almost up to 1,000 Twitter followers. Peace out.